Hello, I'm Angel. Today we're talking about what Social Security is, the history of the program, where it stands today, and I'll talk about its future. Social Security is a payroll tax paid to the government by workers and employers to fund programs that provide pensions to the elderly, disabled, unemployed, and dependents. Social Security in America was born out of the darkness of the Great Depression. President Franklin Roosevelt was elected in 1933 and immediately went to work to raise Americans out of the economic downturn that had already lasted 4 years. FDR announced his now famous New Deal, aimed to bring relief to Americans and usher in economic reform. Some, like Francis Townsend, thought the New Deal was too conservative and wouldn't provide a long-term solution. Conservatives felt it went way too far. Many ideas were floated, and a few gained wide support by the American people. In 1935, FDR announced the Second New Deal, which included the already popular Social Security Act. The Social Security program was modeled on a similar program created by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck in the late 19th century. People pay into the pension fund, and once they retire, they receive payments proportional to that which they paid into the program during their working years. To protect the popular program from being dismantled in a political change of power, Social Security was set up as an insurance program, not a welfare program, at a 2% tax rate, with workers paying 1% and employers paying 1%. Roosevelt raged against any attempt to introduce general revenue funding into the program and is famously quoted as having said, "We put those payroll contributions in there so as to give the contributors a legal, moral, and political right to collect their pensions and unemployment benefits. With those taxes in there, no damn politician can ever scrap my Social Security program." In 1936, Americans were able to begin applying for a Social Security number. Not everyone could, including members of Congress, who had their own taxpayer-funded retirement program until 1984. Most federal and state employees weren't in the system, and public school teachers could opt out. In 1937, the tax went into effect, and the plan was for the payments to begin going out in 1942. The constitutional basis of the Social Security Act was uncertain. According to Larry DeWitt, the basic problem was that under the Reserve Clause of the Constitution's 10th Amendment, state powers not enumerated in the Constitution to the federal government were reserved for the state or the people. The Constitution gives the government the right to tax the people and to give money to the elderly as part of the powers to promote general welfare. But as seen in an earlier 1936 Supreme Court ruling striking down the Agricultural Adjustment Act, the court was more conservative than the nation was leaning at the time, but said the power of Congress to authorize the expenditure of public money for public purpose is not limited by the direct grants of legislative power found in the Constitution. Sprinkle in FDR's threat to overhaul the federal court system and ta-da! The question was settled in a set of Supreme Court decisions issued in May of 1937, and Social Security became the law of the land. This is where there's a lot of confusion about the Social Security program. People still believe they are paying into a personal account with their name and Social Security number on it, but we aren't. It's best described as a conveyor belt, where those of us working now are putting money onto the belt and those retired now are taking it off on the other end. This is the version deemed constitutional by the Supreme Court, and the FDR administration didn't publicize it. At the time, there were nearly 42 people paying into Social Security for every one person receiving Social Security payments. There is a widely reported myth that at the time, Social Security advocates believed that with the retirement age being 65, most people wouldn't live to retire because, according to the Social Security Administration, life expectancy at birth in 1930 was indeed only 58 for men and 62 for women. The Roosevelt administration and every person in the insurance business knew the more appropriate measurement is probability of life expectancy after adulthood. If a man survived to age 21, he had a 54% chance of making it to age 65 and could expect to collect Social Security benefits for almost 13 years. And that number was even higher for women. And thanks to programs like the census, the government knew that there were already 7.8 million Americans 65 and over. FDR even said this when he signed the bill into law.
Social Security measure gives at least some protection to 30 million of our citizens.
Middle-aged voters knew they had a good chance of benefiting from the program. That's why they supported it. When you hear someone purported to be an expert on the history of Social Security say vague things like, "The program was never meant to have that many people on the program for that long," I recommend to take everything they say with a giant salt lick. Over the years, the law has been amended. In 1939, a dependent benefit was added for the spouse and minor children of a retired worker, and survivor benefits in the event a worker died before reaching retirement age. In 1950, farm workers were added, and in 1954, domestic service workers were also added. In 1956, Eisenhower signed into law the Disability Insurance Program. In 1965, Johnson signed Medicare into law, a program that remains incredibly popular with liberals and even conservatives who are actually on the program. In 1983, during the Reagan administration, Social Security income became taxable, something Roosevelt never intended, and the age of retirement was raised. Today, Social Security remains essential to the lives of many elderly Americans. The percentage of retirees to workers has been steadily increasing as one of the biggest demographics in history, baby boomers, continue to retire and Americans are living longer. Now just about 2 people are paying in for every 1 person receiving benefits, which is fodder for Republicans to say the program is not sustainable. But it is. Today, the money for Social Security comes from the payroll tax, which is at about 12%, capped at the first $118,000 of pay, interest on reserves, tax on Social Security benefits. The reserves aren't there anymore. Back when only 1 person was taking money off the conveyor belt for every 42 people shoveling cash on, the money should have been going into a place where it could yield returns for the American people, but Congress raided the fund to pay for other stuff, and now it's just a bunch of government-backed IOUs. Even the projected percentage of GDP for Social Security into 2080 is only going to be 6%. It was 5% in 1960, so that's not a monumental lift. We can keep it going. We can keep it going as it is for a few more decades. But at the rate our Congress moves, we need to start working on a solution now, and a few things need to happen in tandem. Raise the retirement age for each generation by 2 years. Lower and slow the cost of living increases, and raise the cap on the taxable income amount. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. That tells the YouTube algorithm to push it out to people watching similar content. And here are 2 other videos I think you will enjoy.